mean, the powers that we have as humans, let alone as like a group of people with a deep-rooted culture, sometimes we sell ourselves short or become mentally complacent. If we make that jump, we become unstoppable.
Welcome back with the Power of Perception podcast. This is your host, Langi Hola. We've had the privilege to meet today with Fisi Moleni. First off, I just want to thank him for bringing us or giving us this opportunity to have him on the show today. And thank you for coming on. So for Fisi, for those of you who don't know, he played at the University of Utah. He has some of his accolades here on the wall. Academic All-Conference in, was that 97 and 98? And so something I ask a lot of our athletes that we bring on is, playing the sport of football, it's a very humbling sport. And one time or another, all of us have had an opportunity to be humbled playing football. For me, my favorite question to ask to start up our interviews, just to kind of like break the ice, is when's the first time you got playing the sport of football?
When I started playing, you mean?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Tonga and I also grew up in New Zealand. And I remember living in Tonga when my dad was coaching. He was the head coach for the Leohana rugby team. And so I was around athletes. And my dad being a previous athlete at BYU Hawaii. I remember watching some clips or some video snippets from BYU, and Lake Muli and Vaisi Kahema, those are my relatives, and my dad was always talking about what they were doing at BYU and how they went for the national championship and just did amazing things while they were there. And so I thought that kind of planted the seed, and I've always wanted to go to America. And so we had moved to New Zealand at the time, and I was about 16. Well, I was younger than that, but I was playing rugby league, and basketball. And I enjoyed those sports, but my desire to go to America was there, and it even grew as we've had some other people come from America and talk about gridiron or American football. And so I decided I wanted to go to America, and I told my parents, and they finally relented, and I was able to come here when I was 17 years of age, went to Kearns High School, lived with an uncle, and started my journey in trying to figure out what this American football was all about. And so I went to Kearns High, and I was able to acclimate to the game, had some really good people there, some friends of mine that really helped to teach and encourage, and also give me the basics of how to play the sport, because as you know, football is a very technical sport. Every position has its skill set and technique and responsibility. And so the basic techniques that I was taught by a friend of mine, Hemak Atoa, that played at the University of Utah as well, and then also George Afu, was just basic bull rush or the swim move. And I played defensive end, and I played defensive tackle, and I did fairly well. I felt that I was able to accomplish my goals there, and was there for my junior and senior year, and was able to make the all-star team the last year, and got recruited by BYU, the University of Utah, Weber State, and then also Kansas State, and was also getting looked at by Utah State at the time. I chose to go with Utah because Coach McBride went to New Zealand and actually talked to my parents.
Wow.
He flew to New Zealand, and there was myself and another Samoan Polynesian guy out there in Auckland who was a great athlete, a rugby player, Houdini Nua. And so he went to go see both of our parents and to see also Houdini. So we went out there, and of course that's like loyalty in one of the characteristics or pieces that we as Polynesians value more than anything else is loyalty. So I decided to sign with Utah. And so that's what kind of got me on that track towards playing college football, was I was able to sign and got that full ride scholarship to the University of Utah.
Man, that's crazy. There's so many stories about why kids committed. Is like, I don't think I've ever heard a coach leave the country to go see if he can recruit a kid. I don't know if that was like directly or indirectly, but that's a story within itself. For me, I always kind of want to like break down, all the dynamics. How was the dynamic of living in Tonga, New Zealand, and then coming to the States? Was there a huge culture shock for you? How was that?
I was very fortunate. I think that my parents, having raised us and really focusing on education, speaking, having living in Liahona too. We didn't live in the village. We're from Vaini, and so my cousins and them moved from Liahona to Vaini, and they just really became entrenched in the Tongan culture. And myself, we were there with Hafkasis, and so it's like living on campus, speaking English, playing Atari at the time, and watching movies, E.T., whatever it was. We kind of lived in our own little bubble. And so I think that was, in Tonga, you're perceived as Fia Palangi, but at the same time, I think that actually was an advantage for us, because as we moved and transitioned to New Zealand, it wasn't an abrupt change per se, or adaptation for us, because education and speaking the language, and I'm also half Maori, so being that we come from New Zealand as well, it was a transition, and it wasn't such a cultural shock per se. And then coming to America was difficult, but it wasn't such a huge culture shock as it was to many of our people that came straight from Tonga. So I think maybe that was a strategy by our parents to kind of like, maybe to lessen the intensity of the acclimation towards a different, more advanced, I guess, in society, with education and opportunities and things like that, and so I think coming to America, it was actually not as abrupt as it was for others.
Wow. Serving my mission in Tonga, I know that being on the Liahona campus is like totally different from being everywhere else in Tonga, and so in a sense, like Liahona was like a bridge for you guys, to prepare you guys for what was to come. So that's I think that's forthcoming. Like, just not your normal bring up whenever you grow up in Tonga, and so that was probably a huge benefit for you guys.
Yeah, we still spend time in the village. We'd go on the weekends and spend time in Vaini living with uncles and staying with uncles and aunts and grandparents, and so we got to be a part of that, going to the Utah and doing yams and harvesting crops and stuff like that, pineapples and stuff, and so we got to have a piece of that. But then we came right back to Liahona, and so there were those opportunities as well to be a part of our family that lived outside of Liahona as well. So,
oh, that's awesome. So, do any of you guys speak the language fluently to this day?
James, the oldest brother, does, because he actually served a Tongan-speaking mission, and he stayed at Liahona and graduated from Liahona while we were in New Zealand, and so he ended up going on a Tongan-speaking mission himself. We understand, and I can get by very basic Tongan, but again, living in Liahona and then going to Liahona High School for a year, or even middle school, I went to Nauvoo Middle School. You get what is it called? This corporal punishment if you are you're speaking Tongan. It has to speak English. So it was like, the opportunities of really speaking Tongan were in the village, living in the village, being a part of village life. And so we didn't have that opportunity. So we can speak it to a degree, but getting into deep conversations and that kind of thing, it's quite difficult. Yeah.
Oh man. I remember, when we were, a lot of us, Tongan missionaries from the States, who are first generation Tongans in the States, those of us who got the opportunity to come back and serve in Tonga, oftentimes we felt like they were a lot harsher on how our Tongan was compared to like Palangi elders and missionaries. Like, I remember one specific time we had 3 elders speaking. 2 of them were from the States, 2 Tongan elders from the States. One of them was a Palangi elder from the States. And two elders who went up, their Tongan was really good. And then the Palangi elder, he was very good for a Palangi, but like in terms of like where he had his accents and then like his pronunciation in some places, and then how he would use certain words wasn't really like the right way to use those words. But like after he was done, I would hear like all the Tongan elders and sisters from Tonga be like, "Oh man, you're talking so good, this and that." But there's an expectation for us Tongan elders and sisters who came from the States, like, "Oh, you guys have Tongan parents, like you guys should already know how to speak."
Yeah.
And so I always thought that was really funny. So I kind of want to transition into your sports career. You said that you played at Kearns and eventually committed to playing at the University of Utah. Who were kind of like your mentors in football? Like who were the guys that kind of like pulled you aside and taught you the game, or was it just you learned from afar just watching other people?
Man, the Kaufusi brothers. Oh man, they were awesome. The Kaufusi family is just amazing. I mean, when I got off my mission, Steve Kaufusi was my coach, but then his younger brothers were playing on the team too, Jeff and Henry. They were awesome mentors. I mean, I remember coming back off of my mission straight into not 2 days, spring ball. I had a week. I went to Japan on my mission, served, and came back, and it was quite abrupt. I came back right in time for spring ball, and I had a week of transitioning, and boy, I got put in the ringer. It was difficult. It was hard, but I remember the Kaufusi boys were always like giving me tips, and when again going from high school and into college is such an abrupt change or a different level, if you may, speed, technique, everything else. It's very technical, and I didn't really learn that stuff in high school. I just learned how to bull rush and swim.
Yeah.
So I had to learn the game, from the very intricacies of the game itself, and so it was guys like Jeff and Henry that would take me aside and teach me inside hands, leverage, and even Steve, of course, being my coach. And so it was those guys. You had Toile Fa'amoe, you had Nate Kia. I mean, this is at a time when, I just needed some support and, just teach me the basics, because I just didn't really know the game of football. And so it was these guys that came in and really supported me in that acclimation to college football and college life too. So.
Yeah, I noticed something like when it comes to a lot of our Polynesian kids, there always seems to be a lack of fundamentals in a huge way, and oftentimes we're just behind the bubble when we have our kids get to the next level. But I think with this new generation, there's so many camps, there's so many guys who are starting to give back. They're like the guys who have made it are usually the ones running these things, and so even if they're not the ones like personally teaching, like in some way, shape, or form, the knowledge is beginning to trickle down a lot more. And I always tell my little brother who's currently playing at Utah State, he's like, man, you have all the resources in the world. Yeah. Like, if your goal is to make it to the NFL one day, it's all going to be based on you. Like, you have a brother-in-law who's played in the NFL. You have so many cousins who played at a very high level in college football. And they've all have told you, it's like, just text, call, I'm down to, help you out if you ever need help with anything. And so for him, he's very, he asks so many questions.
That's so cool.
And he's been telling me, he's like, so one of our family friends, Wana Kavenga, that played up at BYU.
Oh yeah.
We were going to the gym with him for 2 or 3 weeks straight, and he would just pull him aside and be like, hey, Wana, I'm having a hard time, playing inside backer. It's a whole entire new world for me. I was an outside backer and defensive end. Now I have to memorize everyone's responsibilities. We have a thick book of plays, and I never I just saw defense as 5 or 6 plays. We flip flop it whatever way, and then 3 or 4 coverages on the back end. And then he's like, okay, well, tomorrow when we work out, bring your playbook, and I'll run with you. While we're doing our warm up and jogging and stuff like that, I'll give you the whole breakdown of how why these things are the way they are and how it makes sense. And so we'd be working out for like an hour and a half, and then those two like would stop working out, and literally like 2 hours is just them just talking like the schemes of football. So I always thought that was really cool. And then he has my brother-in-law, you know, Star.
Yes.
And Star can preach to him the term in terms of like being a professional, like coming into, you know, summer camp. He was telling him, it was like, you know, what was the most important thing you think I should work on before going there? It's like, you know, I know you personally, so I know you work really hard. So physically, you know, come 6 months, 8 months, you'll be back to where you were before your mission. It's like, but in terms of like the mental part of the game, it's like sit down with someone who knows, you know, and that's why he hit up Wana in the first place. Because Star was like, get in the playbook and try to memorize everything as soon as possible. So you went throughout your college career. How do you feel like, you know, personally, how was that journey for you in terms of the expectations?
So, you know, I think very similar to many other Polynesians that make it to college. I mean, their goal is to make it to the NFL. And that was, I mean, that's no secret. That was a very powerful desire of mine as well. And I worked really, really hard, you know, especially my first 2 years. I got redshirted the first year, just getting off my mission. And then my redshirt freshman year, I got to play. I was traveling with the team, and I was actually one of the stronger guys on the team. I worked by the time I got playing time as a redshirt freshman. This is when all the boys, Jeff, Nate, Kia, Chad, Kauha'a, Penn, Talamaivao, I mean, there's quite a few, Henry. Going into my sophomore year, I was actually one of the top per body weight as far as strength. I was benching over 500 pounds. I was squatting 650. I was cleaning close to 300 plus. Wow. And at the time, Dwight Daw was our strength and conditioning coach, and he was all about powerlifting. And of course, that's even evolved. The whole training system, strength and conditioning has changed. And so I put a lot of emphasis in working out and trying to work harder than anyone else, because I looked up to Luther Ellis, who had been in the program, and he set the tone, you know, and I've heard all the poly boys talking about him, and I wanted to follow his path. But I had a clubbed foot, and this is no excuse, but I had a clubbed foot as a baby. And my right leg was always atrophied, and I was always getting injured, and I didn't realize the impact it would have until later on. My Achilles was always, you know, it felt like it was about to rupture. I had 6 knee surgeries while I was at the University of Utah playing my right knee, and I had bone grafts put in my right knee before my senior year. I felt that I had the strength and the quickness to play, and Coach McBride actually had me switch over from the D line to the O line my junior year. He pulled me aside in the office, and he said, "Fisi, if you want to make it to the league, you're going to go as a guard or as a center." And so I was totally gung-ho with that. Coach Whittingham at the time was a defensive coordinator. He says, "Oh, we could use you on the D-line." And I says, "Oh, I just got to follow what I want, you know, what I feel is best for me at this point." And so I did. I switched over. But the dynamic of change was a lot on my body, because on the D-line, as you know, you're more leaning forward, and you're going into that killer, you know, the momentum is going forward. On offense, you've got to, you know,
embracing.
Yes, you're taking on the impact. And I was about 300, 305 as a D lineman, 295, 305. And then as an O lineman, I gained more weight. I was about 320 at the time. And so I did really well. I mean, I was switched over. I learned the plays. I acclimated to, you know, the systems and everything else, and everything was on par. And then the injuries became prevalent. Boom, boom, boom. So by the time I was a senior, I really couldn't play. I was traveling with the team to really be a mentor to the younger ones and to support, you know, those younger players. And so it was quite discouraging, because I knew after I came out of one of my surgeries, it was supposed to be just a simple scope, just to clean things up in my knee. It lasted for about 4 to 5 hours. As I got out of my surgery, I came to, you know, from waking up from the anesthesia. Coach Eck was there, my O-line coach, Coach McBride was there, and they had this look on their face. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then the doctor says, well, we had to go in and do more extensive stuff in your knee. And come to find out that my knee would never ever be 100% ever again. It'd be more like 55, 65%. And so that devastated me. I mean, I was pissed, I was mad. I wanted to prove something. I mean, like any other Pacific Island, athlete, they want to give their parents a break from the two full-time jobs that they're doing to support their children. And that was like a huge letdown for myself. Now, my parents didn't care. They were supportive of me in any way. They wanted me to get my education. Well, that was like the second, what is it called? My first goal was to make it to the league, and everything else was like secondary, even education, right? Mm-hmm. So I realized that my path had to go a different route, and that I had to really pick up my grades, and that education was going to be the way I was able to find my profession, my occupation, and also support a family in the future. So I bolstered my grades. I got my grades up. I was able to get a 3.4 GPA in my undergrad, my bachelor's in psychology, and a minor in criminology. And I got right in to the master's program at the University of Utah for social work. And I mean, I was still part of the program and still helped to mentor the younger ones, and that helped to pay for a part of that first semester. And that's, again, because of Coach McBride. I mean, once you're done, you've got your degree, then they don't have any obligation to you. Mm-hmm. But Coach Mac, again, came through and says, Fisi, just come and help mentor these young knuckleheads that are on the team, some of them being my own relatives, and just making sure they go to class. And we'll help you pay for that first semester.
Man, that's awesome. Your story, you sound very familiar to one of my good friends from childhood, Hiva Lutui.
Yes.
He came to his senior year, and then in a practice that they weren't supposed to be padded, for some reason, Coach Witt was just like, full pads today, and someone fell on the back of his knee, and he tore his ACL, and all his hopes and dreams, he had been working all this time. Yeah. And a lot of guys who were in front of him were guys that went on and played in the NFL.
Right.
So he finally gets his opportunity his senior year, and then, tears his ACL. And what was cool about his story was, same thing with him. He said, he's like, I don't know if Coach Witt ever felt like it was guilt, but like how they were treating me, it always seemed like, they were indebted to me. And I never felt that way though. And so he said after he got over, the impact of what had happened and, he finally mellowed out, he said Coach Witt pulled him into his office and was like, hey, we know you won't be able to play for the rest of this year, but we would love if you would still come around. We want to bring you on as a GA. And so he gave him a job right away. And so what's even cool about now is like after he was done GAing for that about a year and a half, he went and found work elsewhere, and then, there was a recruiting opening, and then Witt gives him a call. It's like, hey, we have an opening, and then gives him another job. Yeah. And so I've always thought it's been cool that, there are guys like Witt and McBride who have always looked out for the Polynesian community in a huge way.
Yeah, very much so. And, that bitterness went away after, understanding that everyone's pathway is different, and that for you to embrace, your pathway, and to not compare yourself to anyone else and their accolades and their accomplishments, because when you do so, you belittle and demean yourself in that process, and it's hard to carry that load of what could have happened if. So, it's so many things that lined up for you. But I'm grateful to where I've come to this point in my life, and I'm glad that I was able to have my experiences at the University of Utah. I mean, that camaraderie, going through the blood, sweat, and tears with your fellow teammates, those bonds are still they're solid. We may not see each other, for years on end, but the reality is once we catch up again, it's just like old times.
Yeah, you pick up right where you left off.
It's powerful.
And so, coming to that realization, now you start to dive into what you're going to transition into.
Yeah.
And so for people who don't know, kind of share what your profession is now and how you got into the line of work that you're currently doing?
So I am a mental health professional, a counselor / therapist, mental health therapist, and I've got my clinical license. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And what got me into that line of education and eventually work, this might sound a little bit corny, but like, you know, being on an LDS mission and helping people go through a change process, I thought I better find something where I was able to have a lot of joy in Japan helping people. And I thought, is there some kind of an occupation or an opportunity in this line of you know, helping other people, supporting other people, and seeing them go through a change process, healing, recovery, whatever it may be, that I could be connected with. And I thought, well, counseling, right? Counseling. I had gone through a phase of depression in that transition of trying to get out of the football mentality of having to make it, and then it would have been nice to talk to someone. Mm-hmm. You know, that wasn't really something prevalent at the time, and even in sports today, it's like talking to a shrink or talking to, you know, mental health professionals. Like, nah, I got this, right? And so I thought that's something I'm really intrigued with. So, I mean, I had gotten my bachelor's in, you know, my undergrad in psychology, so that even kind of, you know, really helped to plant the seed and put me in that direction. And then getting my master's, getting my clinical license, and working for a different agency, it was awesome to be entrenched and in the work and helping people with addictive behaviors, with mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, trauma. I've worked with so many different agencies. I work for the state, you know, in corrections as well, mentoring, and different agencies with the LDS Family Services. And, you know, now I've opened up my own private practice that I've had for about 7 years now, and I even have another agency that myself and another business partner, Craig Butler, and we opened about 16 years ago, working with troubled youth. So we have state contracts, and we do in-home therapy, mentoring, and then also medication management as wraparound services. And so that's the field I'm in. I'm very blessed to be in this field, and I've also been vetted with the NFL to actually work with clientele from the NFL in their substance abuse program. So I had my first client about a year ago, and I asked them, how did you get my name? And so they were scrolling through Psychology Today, which is an online advertisement system for anyone that's a mental health professional. They saw me, my background, and they were just intrigued with it. And so they just contacted me, went through the process of application, everything else, and then I started working with my first client in the NFL.
Wow, that's awesome. I think, you know, I'll just share a little experience. Like, you know, there were things that I personally was going through, and me and my wife came to see Fisi. And, you know, there's always this stigma of, you know, why would you go and talk to a therapist? Like, you can just figure these things out on your own. And in terms of the science of a lot of the things that we were going through at the time, you know, it kind of opened our eyes to, like, you know, this is more than just, you know, someone consistently just making a bad choice.
Right.
You know, there's patterns, there's the whole entire, you know, science behind it. And I remember, you know, specifically, like for me and my wife, it gave us like a sense of hope, like that we never really had until that moment. And so for a lot of people, you know, I think the biggest reason why I wanted to do this episode with you was because, you know, there's a huge stigmatism in terms of, you know, we have so many stereotypes in our Polynesian community, right? And so, you know, there's things we struggle with when it comes to, you know, the old way and traditional way of doing things. And so what I wanted to do is just, you know, give you this time to like kind of give us your take in terms of how the traditional sense of our culture doesn't really relate with, you know, being mentally healthy.
Yeah. You know, there definitely is, there are challenges within our Pacific Island community or communities in regards to mental health, seeking help that route, and being able to receive the help and support that they really need, especially in living in America. our families, our parents, our grandparents that have come here, the pioneers from our families that have come here to live in America, to provide the best opportunities for their children, their grandchildren, their posterity. That's that's amazing. That is to want the best for your children. And so I applaud them because they sacrifice so much. My own family sacrificed so much to bring us here and to give us all these opportunities of education, of football, of being in a land of plenty, a land where we can actually achieve and accomplish, new heights, and so they are the immigrant parents. We stand on their shoulders, to be honest with you. I can't take away anything from their love and their desire to provide the best opportunities for us. That being said, they know what they know, and the things that they've done in the islands to raise their families, to be connected as a community, and to live life, to deal with the challenges, those pieces, that way doesn't fit here. In some aspects of living and doing, yes, family connection, love, ofa, and giving of oneself unconditionally, those are the beautiful traits of our culture. And that's what other people are, from the outside looking in, they love that about us. I've heard so many of my Balinese friends tell me that we love, how you guys are just so inclusive and so loving and, sharing and so forth and so on. You hear all these positive things. The challenges, though, are when it comes to family structure, and one of the things that I feel is some of the more challenging pieces within our culture is when it comes to dealing with stuff, stressors. Mm-hmm. We have things such as just defiance. Defiance in general in Tonga or in the islands is squashed, or it diminishes rapidly because of how the system is set up. You're a part of a community, and everyone knows where you are and what you are supposed to do, meaning that you know your place immediately. You step out of line, you get bodied by your parents, or you go to the uncle's house, they hear that happen, they body you again or put you in your place. School is the same thing, respect, loyalty, and those kind of things are like intertwined in our culture, right? And so when it comes to living here, parents are struggling just to make ends meet, that first generation, and so they're working their tails off, supporting and trying to put a roof over the head of their children and also food on the table. So you have already a detachment right there, and then they have their kids who are growing up to be American Tongans or American Polynesians, if that makes sense. And so their identity is changing, and it's becoming different than their parents. They're learning all these different things, they're learning how to acclimate to a system, but there's a detachment between them and their parents. And one of the things that I've realized that the biggest challenge with clients that I've worked with that are from the Polynesian community, especially the young ones, the biggest challenge that I've found is the lack of communication. There are things that really disrupt a line of communication that if there was an open dialogue about the troubles that they're having with schoolwork, or even like dealing with the possibility that they might have depression or anxiety, it's probably clinical in nature, that comes from maybe a predisposition in their genetic makeup, that they can't talk about that stuff. I mean, just there's always a direction of there's a statement or something that gets them corralled or puts them in their place to just get it done. I think that makes sense, right?
Yeah. I think it's kind of like, whatever you're going through is never really justifiable because it's never been,
right,
something that we personally are aware of as a community, right? Yeah. And so, like, as we get older, we become more aware. But now it's kind of like, especially for those of us who grew up very traditional.
Yes.
It's like you have to pick and choose where you know you're aware, but like you know where not to offend people
Right.
in terms of going back and forth.
Yeah.
And so straddling that line, I think, has been a very, I wouldn't say personally like it's like struggling and hard, but you know,
Yeah.
there's a struggle there.
Yeah.
And I think for kids these days, you know, I'll give an example, something that I see within the community. Your parents will tell you, you know, to chase your dreams and do this and do that. But if they don't see your vision like the whole way, they're gonna be like, how are you gonna make money doing that? That doesn't seem very viable, you know. Like if we were talking about like, let's say like for your experience, like you want to tell your parents like, oh, I'm going to be a psychologist, a therapist for people. It's like, so you're gonna get paid to tell people what to do. It's like, yeah. It's like why don't you go be a doctor or be a lawyer, or do this or do that? And you know, I just think it's been really cool now, you know, starting my own family. I just thought, you know, take the things that are very positive from being a Polynesian person and add value to that. And then on top of that, you know, where you see there's fit to be corrections, make those corrections as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I like that you're first generation. That makes sense. Yeah. And a lot of the first generation Pacific Islanders, Tongans, are very intelligent. They're very savvy, and they're very capable of being able to navigate through this amazing landscape, or this place where opportunities are abound. You know, our people, and this is already proven through history and the history books, that our people were the greatest navigators of all time. More than the Vikings, more than any other race, they were able to travel thousands and thousands of miles, where the ocean, for many, especially the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water, was, from the outside looking in, it was restriction, right? And yet it was a highway for our people to go from place to place to correspond with other Pacific Islanders and to have that correspondence. And so they adapted. They thrived on the ocean. And I take that same mentality of our people in knowing that they can do the same thing here. And many are doing the same thing here. They're incorporating, again, the best of their culture, and then also things that are surrounding them, and are becoming their best selves. And part of that is embracing the fact that, okay, we might have these mental health issues that we need to address. We can't just keep, brushing the stuff under the carpet, or we can't just use the term, just, you're fine, you're okay, it's all in your head. Addiction, sexual abuse, trauma, all these types of things that have been brushed under the carpet because it probably could shame our name, or it could bring that name down, or we could be seen in a demeaning way from other families. I mean, we're starting to break that, and I think that's important. I've had clients that have come in that have been abused sexually by uncles, by cousins, by aunts, and that has been hushed or kept, compartmentalized or guarded because of how many people that the family would be fearful of damaging either the name, the reputation, whether they are a leadership in the church or whatever that may be. And so as they come in and share this stuff, they have the courage first and foremost to come in, like, address this stuff with some stranger, another Pacific Islander even. And so to see them, that first generation and even the second generation, have the courage to work through some of this stuff is amazing. And I just totally applaud, and I'm in awe with those individuals that have come in and received help, and even the leadership. I'm talking about leadership within the church. Mm-hmm. I'd served as a bishop and in the Palangi stake, and it seems as if that being a professional in the mental health field wasn't enough to gain any clout. But now the fact that I was a pisope, that now that I have that on top of being a professional, that now I have kind of a voice. And I actually use that, because I'm again, having a leadership position it's almost like they pay homage to that. And you know, I have my own opinions of that, but the thing is, I use that as a platform to help our people to have it in, to give them a different avenue of thought, but then also to work with their kids. And they're more willing to have someone who was a pisope before, and they call me that too when they send a kid or someone from their ward, they call me pisope. Well, I'm fine with that. If that opens up the door towards possibilities of them getting healing, recovery, change, I'm okay with that.
Man, that's crazy. You know, a lot of people value, their values in church over anything else.
Right.
And so whenever they see, Bishop in front of someone saying, "Oh," it's like whatever knowledge he has now becomes a lot more credible.
Right.
I just think that's very funny.
Yeah.
And so, one thing I wanted you to speak on, a lot of people, kind of shame people in terms of addiction.
Yeah.
And so whether that addiction be, like to drugs, or whether it be pornography or this and that, when me and my wife came in here, we learned so much from everything. And I felt like it kind of gave us a sense of, everyone else has their own battles. And so this is our personal battle when we're coming in here. And it's so funny that my wife all the time, like before, she's like, I don't know if I want to go into therapy before we came. And then now she's like, dang, it's like, I wonder how Fisi's doing. It's like, it'd be cool if we could just go back, because, it was such a healing process for her. I just wanted to give you this opportunity to, kind of break down what addiction really is. Because a lot of people kind of see it as more of if they do this, then just don't really mess with them. Just leave them in their own corner.
Yeah. I think to understand addiction is to also preface it with understanding that Tongan, Samoan, Pacific Islander, Caucasian, Asian, it doesn't matter. We're human beings. We're human beings. Therefore, we are beings that have emotion. We are beings that have very similar circuitry in our brains. And just because we have a culture of being fefeka or being tough, it doesn't exclude us from the challenges that face anyone that has to live and survive and provide and and to do. And so anyone can be subjected to certain types of stressors and situations, whether it's traumatic stuff that may have happened in their earlier childhood, or things that are going on with like losing a job and like not knowing what to do to support your family and going through a time of depression or even anxiety. We all will suffer, regardless of culture, what we come from. Whatever fortitude we have in regards to our mentality, that's not going to still keep us from experiencing addictive behavior or other mental health issues. So with that being said, addiction is a disease of the brain. And so people don't really understand it. They see, well, you lack the strength, the mental fortitude to be able to overcome this. If you really had a positive mind and a positive, outlook or mindset, you'd be able to overcome this issue. It's a choice. And I hear that a lot, even from others that are not a part of a culture. It's a choice. It's a choice to a degree. And do you want me to get into some basic brain chemistry behind addiction? Yeah. Okay. So there's what we call the reward pathway of the brain, and that entails the frontal lobe. That is where reasoning and logic occur. Executive functioning. We, in that frontal lobe, are able to come to the best conclusion or choice based on, putting things together, organizing things in such a way that we come out, making the best choice. It's the brake of the brain. It says, stop, don't do that, don't cross the road. If the semi-truck is coming, I'm going to get splattered, right? That's that part of the brain functioning. Or if I put my hand in this boiling pot of water, my hand's going to get scalded or burnt, right? And so we make the choice based on what we know. The midbrain is the opposite of that conscious, logical part, the reasoning part of our brain. The midbrain is the reptilian part of the brain that is responsible for fight or flight or for crisis intervention, for like immediate reaction, impulsivity. And what also happens in the brain is, in the nucleus accumbens, a certain part of the midbrain, dopamine is being induced. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter or brain chemical that is responsible for, like, when we are like desiring something, like, man, I can't wait to get my 21 ounce, prime rib from Texas Roadhouse, or like something that we've experienced that has given us a lot of pleasure or joy. The thing about that midbrain also is that it ingrains memory, pleasurable experiences or moments. And so, like, for instance, if I'm viewing pornography, there's an unhealthy amount of dopamine and other brain chemicals being induced or flushing through my system. It's very powerful. Well, that part of your brain then has just made a mental note. This feels good. Let's go back to this. And it can be drugs. It can be other behaviors such as pathological gambling. It can be eating too. And so when a person reinforces that part of the brain by engaging in behavioral addictive behavior, addictive behaviors or addictive substances, they're reinforcing that part of the brain, and they're basically hijacking the brake pad, and that brake pad starts to wear down. It doesn't have the same effect or the functionality anymore, and that midbrain becomes something that is more in the control or in the driver's seat. And that's where addiction then occurs, is the hijacking of that part of the brain. And you can be logical and have a conscience in many parts of your life, but when it comes to this specific type of situation, or let's just say, for instance, you get overwhelmed with life, and that happens. Well, what if you just put in your memory bank or in your file? Oh, I'm going to go smoke weed, or I'm going to drink alcohol, or I'm going to go view pornography. And you gravitate or are drawn. Those things become very powerfully enticing, or it becomes a very powerful allure to get from A to Z as quick as possible. It's not the logical part of the brain, it's the reactive part of the brain. And so the great message is that even though the brake pad is worn down, it doesn't really, when you say you stop, it doesn't stop. Like when I have all this remorse and desire to change, but it's not happening, change can occur. That brake pad can regenerate. That gray matter in your brain can regenerate, and it can become functional again. And so the change process and the healing process and recovery process with addiction involves including a support system. And this will make sense. If my ability to use reason and logic is compromised because that part has been like damaged, what does a support system do? They're an extension of a conscience to help us navigate through some of the difficulties and to also overcome what is very prevalent in addiction, which is being silent or being isolated or trying to figure this thing on my own. It takes a lot of humility, and I'm sure that you've kind of gone through that phase too in your process. It takes a lot of humility to include someone else, especially in our culture where, man, I should be tough enough to figure this out. I should be fefeka. I should be, I can do this. Addiction will overwhelm you. It will overcome you. And so a big first step, as I mentioned earlier, is, acquiring or having that support system, those people or individuals that love you unconditionally, that are willing to support you, not judge you, demean you, or discourage, but to uplift, the support, and to give you, again, an extension of a conscience to make logical decisions as you move forward. Understanding this is like an aha moment for a lot of people, because it's like not because of a lack of moral fortitude or my willpower just sucks. No, this part of the brain has been damaged over a period of time. And a lot of times people are exposed to it by chance, with pornography. They could have been exposed by some parent leaving a magazine or something else out, or a videotape. Or for drugs, it was like just, dabbling with weed or hanging out with the boys and drinking, from kava to alcohol. And at the time, it was a fun time, right? Well, what is your brain doing? It's storing those moments of euphoria and pleasure for a later time when they're going through difficulty. And that's when addiction is quite, the potential is very high. And so I hope I'm explaining myself well enough, but
No,
yeah,
spot on.
yeah. So that's kind of addiction in a nutshell. And there's hope, there's change, there's opportunities to get the help needed, and there are different coping mechanisms that you can put in place and strategies and so forth. But that's kind of like addiction, I guess, 101.
Awesome. And I think that was probably like the number one reason why I really wanted to speak with you. You know, a lot of these athletes have kind of given me a platform to kind of, you know, tell their story. And so I think what would be most beneficial is like putting out stuff that can actually benefit the community as a whole. And so for that, I say, like, thank you so much. And so before I close, you know, for all of my guests who come on, you already got the shirt and stuff. But, you know, not only thank you from me, but my wife says thank you as well.
Awesome.